end up losing the rook on a1. And so white has to waste a bunch of tempi. I mean, white doesn't do it for nothing. They induce black to give up some of the pressure on d4 by playing c4. But that's just a similar idea to why you have to be careful about developing the queenside bishop so early when your opponent has moved their c pawn already. But even if black doesn't play queen b6, like during the game we had bishop e7 and we had trade. If black just takes back with the knight, you see now black has two pieces defended or developed, while white only has one. And why is that? It's because white spent 2 tempi with the same piece in the opening, right? But black never spent more than 1 tempo with a piece. And so this is why they say in the opening you generally shouldn't move the same piece twice. It ends up leading to your opponent getting a development advantage. And bishop g5, like even if you don't see this queen b6 that like b2 is weak. Yeah, it's if you don't have a plan against bishop e7, like I think it's kind of clear once you see this position that maybe bishop g5 wasn't like that fruitful. But yeah, also from black's perspective with bishop e7 as opposed to queen b6, we have like the Caro/French structure here, and black wants to be able to break out with c5. And usually keeping the dark square bishop around is helpful for that endeavor. It just helps prepare c5. So both of those together, like maybe like black could have found queen b6. But okay, we have queen b6 takes, and actually queen takes, which is interesting. I mean, it does actually threaten in quotes, a fork on b4. But in general, you want to take with the less valuable piece, just because it helps develop your knight, gets you closer to being castled. So, okay, queen e7, bishop d3. It's actually a very interesting move. White allows the fork on b4, and actually it's perfectly okay. Like even though it looks like it blunders b2, it actually doesn't really, because queen b4, c3, queen b2, and bishop takes f5. So white is actually banking on the fact that this rook on a1 is kind of untouchable, because the queen ends up just getting trapped. So for example, bishop takes f5. Now don't play knight g2 to defend the rook, because then c3 hangs, right? So keep the knight on b1 to protect c3, but actually just castles. And the same idea as we'll see in the game is that if queen takes a1, queen c2, and this queen is actually just trapped. Knight d2 comes next, and black will have to give up the queen for the rook. So yeah, actually bishop g3 was very interesting. Queen takes b2, takes, and now black did take on a1. White played queen b3, which is the same idea as queen c2. Maybe slightly out of place on b3, just because you're allowing, a5, a4 ideas, which, who knows, maybe helps a6 and gives the queen a retreat square on b2. So the queen is just a little bit more safe tucked away on c2, but both kind of accomplish the same thing. They guard c3, they guard a2, they don't let the queen escape. Okay, queen b3, b6. Yeah, black just forgot to take back on f5. So white should definitely just retreat the bishop. Okay, a little bit of double blindness between white and black. Takes, knight d2, takes. So actually in this whole operation where the queen took on b2, a1, and f1, black trades the queen for 2 rooks, which actually in general would favor black. But the thing about this position is we can see that white is fully developed. Like this knight is coming to g3, the queen is developed, the king is castled, and none of black's pieces are developed. So you can't look at these kind of trades just in a vacuum, like counting material points. Like white is more than happy to sacrifice that material for this leading advantage, this leading development that they've gotten. And okay, knight e7, developing, getting closer to castling, which is good. Knight g3, bringing the pieces to the king side. So we see that the pawns are on c3, d4, e5. This pawn on e5 gives black a lot of space in the center and towards the king side. And a good rule of thumb is to look at your pawn structure and see which way it's pointing. And generally you want to attack towards the side that it's pointing. Just because usually that's where you have space, makes it a lot easier to attack. So if your pawns are pointing towards the queen side, attack on the queen side. But yeah, white is bringing their pieces towards the king side where they should naturally be attacking, which is good. Castles. Queen c2, really like this move. Puts pressure on f5, and in fact, like black really shouldn't try to defend this pawn. It's just better to pitch the pawn. It's a little bit the lesser evil. G6, the problem is you've already given up the bishop pair back when not the bishop pair, the dark squared bishop, back when there was the trade on e7. And without the dark squared bishop around and the queen like just around the corner, like these dark squares are looking very vulnerable for black. And that should be the main middle game strategy that white has here, is they've induced g6, inducing dark square weaknesses, and they should be taking advantage of that. So like one sample line would be like queen d2, king g7, preventing the queen infiltrating on h6, but then queen g5, and already there's knight h5 ideas, it's queen f6 ideas, followed by knight g5. Yeah, it feels scary, and if you try to stop the queen from coming in on f6, then that walks into knight takes f5. And yeah, white is just kind of swarming around black. This feels very uncomfortable for black. So this would have been like the better middle game idea for white, and I think if white had gone for this, yeah, it's pretty close to being just straight winning for white. Sorry, we skipped through. So yeah, white goes for knight h5. So white had the idea, yeah, that black's king is a little airy with his move g6, and had planned this sacrifice to open up the king. The problem is just that there's not enough pieces on the board really to attack with this open king. So even actually if knight takes, which is maybe the slightly more accurate move order, because at this point, like let's say rook e8, yeah, there's just no pieces left for white. Like white only has the queen, and white's not going to be able to checkmate black with just a queen. Like you need at least a pawn or something on h6 or like f6 to help with the checkmate, but a queen alone can't checkmate the king. Yeah, and that's also why like we had this other move order. Yeah, black should just take and transpose to that other one we had. Except black keeps pieces on the board, which, okay, now white has two pieces now, potentially to get around black's king. So there's a little bit more hope that there could be some attack. Except, yeah, so queen e2. So again, going to a white square instead of a dark square. So again, queen d2 or queen c1 would have been a little bit preferred. Rook e8, knight h6. Potentially inviting a repetition, but even after knight f5, the king doesn't have to repeat. He can just drop back to h8. But yeah, white tries to go for the counterattack against this knight at d7. But in fact, black is happy for this trade, again, because we end up in a situation where white has no more pieces for the attack, and black is now left with the 2 rooks and the knight versus the queen, which should be more than enough for black to convert. Knight f8, getting out of the attack. f4, trying to take advantage of the pin, but actually, yeah, this is great from black. Takes on h6. f5. And even if black gives up this material, which maybe black had a more accurate way, like black is consolidating. White only has the queen left on the board, and black is up 4 points of material here. So black's king is still a little bit open, but with a few more accurate moves, black should just be totally fine. So takes rook e4, which is actually a really nice move. Black could have played rook e1 then rook e4, but either way, rook e4 is basically required because if black just dilly-dallies, plays a nothing move like, let's say, a6, h4 is basically just checkmated. Like, there's no way for black to stop queen g5 mate, and if you try to sacrifice the knight, queen g7 is mate. So rook e4, really nice move. Coordinates the pieces really well. Like the knight and rook coordinate well on h4, f4. And yeah, when you're up material, an important idea, you want to get all of your pieces into the party. So it would have been nice to see rook f8 here. Especially because A, you're getting the rook into the game, threatening to get rid of this kind of annoying pawn on f6, stopping the king from retreating to g7. And this rook is well placed on e4. Like, it stops queen f4, queen e3, so white can't, check on the c1, h6 diagonal. And yeah, if you play h4, then the rook can just take it. So yeah, rook f8 would have been nice. But okay, rook f4, queen e3 creates a threat to it's pinning the rook, and yeah, rook f8. So not seeing the threat, we have g3 taking advantage of the pin. Takes, and so now this is a difficult position to play for both sides. Very imbalanced. And the next few moves aren't necessarily engine moves, but they're generally pretty reasonable. I think the game was played well for the next next little bit, and it's hard to say what the correct plan is for either side. Yeah, black did allow this fork, but okay. c6, a brave move walking into the discovery, but yeah, there's just no good discoveries to be had here. A nice rule of thumb, by the way, just keep in mind, you can't get forts if your pieces are on opposite colored squares, like with this knight. So if you're playing a blitz game online, that's just a good rule of thumb to know. Knights can only attack pieces on the same color. King takes, king b3, queen e8, knight g2, and yeah, this is an unfortunate moment for white. White kind of had to repeat and then only then play king d2, and the reason was because, as we'll see in the game, this really nice find, rook f2. And the point is that it actually forces white to go onto the back square, the back rank. And yeah, it's getting a little bit uncomfortable for white here. The rook is super active. active, black can start escorting, their pieces. His pawn's a promotion. So even though white is still technically a material, or actually it's even material. Yeah, it's even material, but with an active king versus an inactive king already in this position, I would pick black, I think. But white played king d3, which just runs into another very nice move, knight f4, and this was very heads up play by black. These last two moves, and they won her the game because the only square for the king is king e3, and this walks into the skewer. And yeah, the queen is lost, and at this point, actually already back here, white resigned. So it was a hard fought game from both sides. Both sides had a lot of really good opportunities, and yeah, in the end, it tends to be whoever blunders last is the side that loses. So you gotta keep fighting. Yeah, so that's both of our games for this week, and any questions about either of the games?
Could we go back to the position here where the rook first checked on 2? Yeah. So I know in this case you showed, what was it?
King d1.
D1, yeah. Would c1 work at all here?
Yeah, I mean they're basically equivalent.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, I mean either way, white has to just not play king d3 basically because it walks into this tactic.
Yeah, gotcha. That's
and either way, a2 is potentially going to fall. The king is very far from helping and escorting, or preventing any kind of h1 promotion ideas. And yeah, the knight and rook potentially are going to coordinate together with potentially c3 falling. Because in this position, I maybe don't even take on a2. I maybe play something. I'm trying to. Do I play king f4 maybe? The pieces just get very active. I maybe don't play king f4 right away because I don't want to just hang. King f4 just hangs the pawn.
Not at all.
Which is maybe still good for black, but maybe unnecessary. But yeah, it becomes difficult for white. In endgames, your kings. Or it's one of your last pieces left in the game, so king activity is really valuable. That's why you'll see in any strong players endgame, the first thing they do generally is bring their kings into the center.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Anything else that was you were maybe concerned about?
Not necessarily. That's most of the concern from this game. Really, just I calced to the position where king ended up on e3, but for whatever reason, no e3. I saw that move was forced, but I for whatever reason didn't see the rook moving over from f to e. I saw it moving from 2 to 3, and I liked that for some reason. Which is nothing, right? I thought because you can't really protect, and so I just missed the skewer.
Yeah, I mean even if the king wasn't defending the knight, black can sacrifice the knight just to win the queen. Right?
I just missed that.
Yeah, I mean it's an unusual pattern. This knight f4, which forces king e3, which walks into rook e2. So yeah, it's definitely not an easy thing to spot, and that's why I gave the X to both rook f2 and knight f4. because this is like a very, very nice find. Not even one that I necessarily would have like immediately spotted or something.
Yeah.
So but good games from both Sarah and Quentin. Congrats to Sarah on the win. And so thanks for coming.
Of course. Thank you for doing this.
Yeah.
It's only so helpful to review what the engine says I should do. Without
The
proper
engines
context.
will often like say so. Like I'm sure the engine, especially if we go back to, oh my god, go back to like these moments, right when like this whole stretch.
You just missed all the fun. You reviewed our game.
Oh no!
It's recorded. You can watch the
Yes.
recording.
Yeah, you missed it.
I'm sorry, I have work.
I just gave you a hearty congrats though on the win. So.
Thank you.
But I was saying like during this stretch, you both played well. Like the engine might have slightly preferred moves, but it's totally normal chess. The board is pretty open. A lot of options for both sides. Nothing I can really be too critical about during this whole stretch. And Sarah, I gave you the exclam for Rook F2 and then Rook Knight F4. Both really nice finds. So
Forever.
So that's it for this week.
Nice. That's good. Yeah. I guess, we can clap.
Thank you so much.
My Jeb Bush moment. Please clap.
We we had some issues with the streaming. It just stopped streaming, so hopefully not too much of the game was lost.
Oh no, Sarah, you might not be able to see.
Yeah, you might not.
I'm so sorry.
You might not be able to.
But I can also send you my annotations and everything of the game.
Please.
Yeah.
We were in like a really I didn't capitalize on it, but there was like